one. Okay, hey guys and girls, tonight we have Lars Stender coming back to us to read more about his books. I'm not gonna say much tonight, I'm just gonna leave the word into Lars Stender and tell about what his plan is for tonight, and then let him do his thing because he's amazing at it. So here you go, Lars, take the word.
Thank you very much. Um, Tonight I'm going to read a little bit from two of my books. I'll be reading two sections from the sci-fi horror story Eyes, and afterwards I'm going to read two chapters from the fantasy book Mandigo and the Hellhounds. In between, I'll just make a short uh, detour and talk a couple of minutes about map making. Especially for fantasy books, map making is a very important element. And I just want to talk a little about the tools I use in that context or for that purpose. But right here now, I'll just start reading. Um, and I will read from Eyes, as I mentioned before, a section from the first chapter in the book. And this section is special because it is here we meet our mystery man for the first time. And just for those who are not up to speed on what we are dealing with here, this is a science fiction horror story taking place on the moon in 2026, when NASA at Earth has lost communication lines with a base built on the south pole of the moon. And then I start reading now. Canadian Rockies, 12 weeks earlier. I hate winter. Sure, the snow is pretty to look at, but damn inconvenient when you have to get out and gather firewood or visit the grocers. Everything gets more complicated and onerous during winter time. At least that's my experience. Maybe I'm biased after all. I'm forced to live in a log cabin too far from anywhere to make social calls an option. It's fine in the summer when I can roam the mountains and at leisure and skinny dip in the hot springs. But winter means constraints and a limitation of movement. More important, though, is the fact that winter makes it harder for me to see when my enemies are approaching. I try to keep a wide area around the cabin free of snow. A killing ground, you might say. But it snows almost every day now. Bitter, cold, and snow. Meteorologists don't like this because it's an unusual combination. Climate change is the cause, they say. Well, could be they are right. But up here we've been getting more snow than ever. I can barely keep up. 10 inches alone yesterday. I'm sweaty and tired all the time from shoveling all that blasted snow. Clothes are damp and won't dry properly. I sleep a lot, or try to. Have to. But the nightmares keep coming. I don't get much rest. Might as well shovel snow. The dark is a real enemy during winter. I have to work under glaring lamps. They disturb my vision and make everything harder. I have to be able to see my enemies. I know they're lurking out there, waiting, biding their time. They're growing restless, however. I can feel it in my bones and from the pressure in my skull. It's been a long time since our last face-off. They won't forget that one easily, and I made it damn difficult for them to find me this time. With just a little bit of luck, I'll be able to ride out the winter in peace here. I have to move as soon as weather permits, though. Can't stay too long in one place or they'll find me for sure. Wind is in the north, full of small ice particles. They prick my ski mask. Snowdrifts are covering half the ground. Damn! There's at least 2 hours of hard work, possibly three. I want to go back inside and curl up in bed with a mug of hot coffee and a good book. Something with action and romance. Yeah, I know, I'm silly when it comes to that. It's not like escapism, though. In a way, I've had plenty of action in my life up until now, but little in the way of romance. Never had time for that. Or maybe I had. at some point in the past. I can't really remember anymore. So much shit has happened, I can barely remember what year it is. I grab the shovel and start moving the snow. The temperature is dropping. It is getting harder to breathe. The snow is getting worse too. The lamps can barely illuminate the yard. This is ridiculous. I can't keep up. My arms are too heavy. I'd better check the roof though. If too much snow accumulates up there, I'm in trouble. I sense movements as I shovel my way around the cabin to the roof ladder. There's somebody out there in the dark, just beyond the light from the lamps. Or was it my imagination? God knows I'm so tired I wouldn't put it past my overwrought mind. I can't take any chances, however. I have to assume the worst. If they found me, I have to find cover. I'm too exposed right now, caught in the glare from one of the lamps and standing in a narrow trench with a wall of snow on one side and a log cabin's wall on the other. Although it's a stupid thing to do in a weather like this, I remove my goggles. I have to be able to see my enemies coming if it really is them. If I'm lucky, it's just a bear that's been disturbed from his winter slumber, but that's highly unlikely, and I'm usually not that lucky. I crouch by the corner of the cabin, try to penetrate the whirling snow with my gaze, but I can't see a damn thing. The wind and my breathing are the only sounds I hear. Damn, I hate this. I can't stay here. I've got to move. I get up and start running toward the door to the cabin. That's when I feel a pang in my right thigh. I'm hit. The leg becomes numb almost at once. I stumble. I hear myself scream in rage. I see two more darts hit the wall next to me. Another breaks the glass in the window. More darts hit me, one in my arm, one in my back. Damn, how many do you think it takes? I fall. I can no longer feel my legs or arms. I turn my head. I need to see those guys. But all I see is whirling snow. And then the lights fade. End of section.
You want me to share something before we go on, or you just want to read on?
I'll just jump to the next section. I'll just put in the remark here saying this mystery guy, as you can imagine, he's being caught. And he wakes up in a military prison or hold in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't really know where he is. But he slowly gets to learn something about the people who has caught him. And when we meet him next, he's in Nevada at a facility called Area S49 in the Nevada Test and Training Range. I'll start reading from it now. I hear the grating hinges of the heavy steel door as it opens. Air, dry and somewhat cooler, puffs into my cell. I smell the now familiar odor of gun oil, canvas, leather boots, sweats, and bad cologne. In this forcibly induced darkness, I hear heavy, slow footsteps propel a heavyweight entity into my domain across the concrete floor. His every step crunches grains of sand under his soles. My ears, having become oversensitive after a prolonged period of isolation, hurt as they pick up the cracking sounds. My visitor knows this, of course, just as I know that he takes morbid pleasure in making me uncomfortable. I know who he is. I've come to recognize his footfall and the way his body mass influences the airflow around him, and the way he stinks. So, Coral, what's up? I ask before he reaches me. He stops. Command Sergeant Major Flint Coral is an angry man, and he hates me. The feeling is mutual. We will never be friends, and I suppress a smug smile as I sense his bewilderment. I can almost hear his lonesome brain cells spinning about trying to figure out how I could have known it was him coming to see me long before he'd said a single word. He remains quiet for several seconds. Possibly he's contemplating just how much he hates me. Though I've never seen his face, his appearance is clear to me. Big, beefy, fat lips, short neck. He reeks of gung-ho machoism and zero tolerance. He's appointed himself my personal pain in the ass, and I have no doubt that, given the chance, he'd bugger me for the sheer pleasure of administering his version of cruelty and dominance. I must be careful and not give him that chance. At the same time, however, I must keep him off balance. I must keep him thinking that about what I am and what I might do. He's a slow thinker, and therein lies my chance. Seems like you're going up in space, you freak, Coral growled, fingering his sidearm. I just pray that I'll be allowed to leave your sorry ass up there. Then all is well, isn't it, Coral? I mean, I'll bet your ass is a prettier one. It's a dangerous provocation, I know, but I can't help it. The man's breath is killing me. He must be made aware that he doesn't scare me. He tries to reign through fear. If he cannot induce fear in his prey, he hasn't got anything. Sergeant Coral looked as if he would go berserk. His face twitched maniacally, and his whole body seemed hit by spasms. He curled his fist into claws and reached for the prisoner's neck while drool of ire dribbled from the corners of his mouth. At the very last moment, however, he managed to control himself. A hissing sigh escaped his throat, and he pulled back, gradually restoring his composure. One of these days, you scumbag, one of these days. Turning on his heel, he strode out of the cell, slamming the door shut with a loud clangor, plunging the cell into Stygian darkness. End of chapter.
Here we go, guys. So we got the first thing over, and Robin, I tried to talk to you. Please mute your mic while we get reading.
On it.
Yeah. All of this, guys, is our lovely guy Lars Stender from Denmark and writer that goes all English on his books. You will always be able to find these online, or you can always come to the Discord channel and type in there and he can answer you, or always check the links we have in there. So from now on, I know that Lars have something amazing to share with us about some maps and where he finds some ideas. I hope you will still listening and get ready for the other book as soon as he's done with that. Lars, take the scene.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Especially when doing fantasy books, but also science fiction books, creating a map is often quite important. And in my case, I use something called Incarnate, and just put in a link here, and then you can, those of you who are interested, you can go click in and see what it's all about. It's a wonderful tool to create maps of almost every kind you want to do. There's a lot of features and tools in there, which makes it easy to work with and a lot of fun. And in my case, in particular, it's been a really great help using this tool, because it's helped me visualize the worlds in which my characters are moving, and for both the readers and myself, that makes the whole experience much more rewarding.
So the reason why you're sharing this with me is because you inspired me to start typing something.
Yep, that's right.
And that will be a lot more in the future, but this is all about Lars Stender, so we keep with that for now. And yeah, I think you want to share more about that, or you're already on to the next. You only use 15 minutes.
Well, actually, I'm just going through the next book. Just talk about a little about Mandigu and the Hellhounds. We haven't talked that much about it in the past, but I'll just say this, that it's about a young boy who becomes an apprentice at a sorcerer. He has been living isolated in a small village in a world that has reverted to a medieval state of technology after a great event called the Storm. Now, the Storm is event created originally at the CERN facility and research complex in France and Switzerland, when they accidentally opened a hole to a portal to another dimension. Earth was thrown into this chaotic condition after the storm, and just about every advanced technology has vanished, and we are now living in a sort of medieval world. Most of the population of Earth has also been killed, so it is a really tough and dangerous world, but it is a world with magic, and this guy, Mendigo, has magical powers. Um, and when the story or the chapter I'm going to read now um, is actually just before he is contacted by someone called the Dark Knight. Mendigo lives in this village at the Miller's family, and he has just been into the woods, where he has delivered a infant child he has found on the river flowing through the village to a white witch called Greta. Now he's back in the village where he lives, and there has been a attempt at kidnapping the child here Mendigo has found. Mendigo and Greta prevented the kidnapping, thwarted it, and now Mendigo, as I said, is back in the village where he lives. And I'll start reading now. The rest of the day, Mendigo behaved and worked as though in a daze. He was still fairly shaken by what had happened on that Greta's that morning, which resulted in him being even more clumsy while working than usual. It got so bad that his father ended up giving him a good whipping. But even though the blows stung, somehow they just weren't nearly as frightening as the claws of the Skrulloks on the fangs on the demonic creature who appeared in Greta's steam mirror. At the same time, the blows also helped Mendigo make a final decision. He would leave his family and travel with Greta and Bellatrix. That night, a hard wind blew from the northeast. It started to rain. It was a cold, icy rain that cast a bleak and dreary mood across the land. Big, dark clouds raced across the sky like angry packs of wolves on the hunt for a wounded animal. The rain intensified and finally hit the village roofs and gables like lashings meant to punish the inhabitants for all their sins. The vicar let all the church bells, big and small, chime in order to make it known that he would be holding an extra service. But the rain and wind overpowered the sound so much that only the people who lived close to the church had heard it and attended the service. Even though the distance was short for these people, they still got soaking wet on their way to the church. The vicar preached in 1 hour about the dark powers attempted to frighten the inhabitants of the village. But if everyone just remembered to pray to God for the forgiveness and promised to mend their ways, then the vicar promised them the storm would soon subside. Even though it has been ages since a storm had raged through the land, the enormous destruction which it had wreaked was still something the people talked about and handed down from generation to generation, and so was still very real to them. They looked upon strong winds with suspicion and fear, because they saw it as an omen warning them of a new huge storm. Neither Mendigo nor his family would dream of going out on a night like this. The entire mill was squeaking and creaking from the strong gusts coming from the increasingly strong winds that swept across the village. The mill was the tallest building in the village and therefore had to weather the worst of it. Mendigo's father attempted to appear as though the storm didn't worry him, but he couldn't quite hide his concern. Every time the mill shook or there was a loud sound, a small shudder would go through his large body, and his gaze would rest on the spot where the alarm of the windmills crank into the mill's cupola, as though he was anticipating that one or more of the arms would get torn off at any moment. It had happened once before, and the repairs had taken several weeks and been very expensive. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Sorry. It was a hard, almost metallic sound that made everyone in the mill start. No one wanted to go over and open the door. Even Mendigo's father sat motionless at the dining table as he merely stared at the door, as though it was beyond his comprehension that anyone could have dared venture out in such a weather, with the sole purpose of paying the mill a visit. There was another knock, this time louder and more determined. Mendigo's mother looked over at her husband, who finally got up slowly and moved towards the door. "Who's there?" he shouted. "The one you've been expecting," was the answer, blunt and piercing. There was an almost bestial undertone in the voice that got the Miller's family to huddle closely together about the hearth. To Mendigo's surprise, his father became visibly pale at the sound of the voice, and the next moment he became even more surprised to see his father give him a strange, dejected sort of look. It was a look that made Mendigo extremely nervous. Something was very wrong, and it had to do with him. "Don't open it," he said. "I have to, son," his father said in a resigned tone as he unbolted the door and let it open. Meanwhile, the rain had stopped, and there were big holes in the scattered clouds. However, the darkness made it hard to see any details. Mendigo heard the sound of horses' hooves approaching. Mendigo's father remained standing at the door and blocked off most of the view from Mendigo. He didn't know whether to be annoyed or grateful over it. He had a very bad sensation in his stomach now. "Bring out the boy," a deep voice said. It was different from the first voice. It was lower, yet commanding. Mendigo's father shuddered visibly. "Please spare him. He's a child after all, and I need him in the mill." "You whip him every day. You knew this day would come when you took him in. I told you I'd get him when he turned 12. Bring him out here. We'll be riding off immediately." Mendigo's father sighed and looked as though he had shrunk. He turned around and looked at Mendigo, who understood nothing of what was going on, other than that something terrible was about to happen. "I'm sorry, Mendigo, but I'm afraid you'll have to leave with the man." "But no. Why?" Mendigo protested as he saw his plans for leaving with Greta and Bellatrix evaporate. A wave of panic washed over him. Mendigo's father was obviously struggling with himself. His wife embraced and pressed both Ragnhild and Mendigo against her and sent her husband a pleading look. For a brief moment it looked as though the miller might actually stand up to the strange knight's demand, but then he apparently changed his mind. He gave a hoarse sigh and then nodded determinedly before him. "There's unfortunately nothing we can do, son. You will have to leave with this man. I promised him a long time ago that once you turn 12 you would become his apprentice. Don't be afraid. He's a family member of mine. He will treat you well and provide you with a good education. He will be able to teach you much more than Greta." "But I want to stay with Greta," Mendigo protested. His father shook his head. "I'm afraid that's not possible, son. Well, get your things then. The man is waiting." With heavy feet and slow steps, Mendigo crawled up the tower and under the stairs leading to the cupola to get his things: a blanket, a small duffel bag, and a little bag with different funny things he had found in the forest. Among other things, there was a mouse skull, some beautiful feathers, a glittering stone he had found by the river, and a dried flower Bellatrix had given him one day during the summer. He saw the little girl's smile before him and felt an unfamiliar sharp lump in his throat. He breathed, trembling, and was getting ready to crawl down again when he noticed one of the windows in the tower. He froze for a brief moment, but then he rushed over and opened the window. He had long limbs and was lithe. Maybe he could squeeze himself through the window, slide down the mill's outer wall, and run away. In the darkness and stormy weather, perhaps he could escape the night and hide in the forest and make his way to Greta's. He was certain that she'd be able to help him. But just as he was looking out, lightning lit the sky, and as the thunder hammered down on Mendigo's overwhelmed eardrums, he saw, in a glaring flash from the lightning, several huge black dogs salivating with shining teeth, running around the foot of the mill. One of them lifted his ugly head and stared almost gleefully up at Mandego with a pair of unnatural red eyes. The gleam from the high lightning had disappeared, but Mandego had seen enough. He was trapped. End of chapter.
So, guys, there you have it. One amazing man gave you 25 minutes of his voice, and even almost lost it under the way. It is amazing, guys. You should always be here when he comes. He is an amazing reader, an amazing writer. Lars Stender, thank you again, man.
Thank you.
You're amazing, and I know for a fact that people, as soon as they know that you're here, will come like running. I must say, for two of my guys, one of them is on baby duty, so he could not come this time. He got a little one a few months ago, and the other one is on a boat, forced to be on job. So those are two of the guys that is out there. I didn't know if Blue had the chance to make it, but else he will go in and see the video when we upload it.
Sure.
And as soon as Robin understood that you were here today, he instant jumped in, no matter what game he was playing. And hello to you, Robin, again.
Hello.
I will say, guys, you should always go in, check the videos on YouTube with the Lars Stender. He's the only author coming to my channels, and please go in, listen to them, learn about his books. Come here, have some chat with him, ask some questions. This is an amazing opportunity for you guys. He's not in a mess with a lot of other people. You have instant time to actually interact with this guy. I don't know, Lars, are you on the Twitch right now?
I'm on the Twitch, yes.
Okay. So if you ask a question in there, you can instantly get an answer. And don't forget, this guy is here for you guys. He chooses to come in here. I believe the more we have him here, the more famous he will get on the YouTube channel, and the more we can do for him. It's not always about money, it's also about making a name out of it. And he is making new books, so those are not even on the market yet. And last time that we talked in here, he actually put up some of those starting on the books. So guys, you get the first glimpse into how a writer works. This is an amazing opportunity that I don't see anywhere else. So you should come here, you should share it with your friends. Everything will be on English for you guys. He actually lived quite close to me, and we met in, what was it? Was it in the supermarket first, or was it at the training we start talking? I think it was back. Yeah?
Yeah, I think it was actually a training. Started talking first.
Yeah, we met up in the locker room.
Yep.
And we ended up talking about games back then, and I had no clue how amazing writer he is. So guys, you should definitely support this guy and show him that you want to support up on it. Check the videos, come in here, have a chat, ask questions again. Do anyone have some questions about the book we're getting read up from today? Then please type them in, guys. Don't hold back. I don't know if Blue is here, but if she is, she will probably be here and ask something. Let's see. I will actually get a visit by Blue and her friend next Thursday.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's two of my friends. I know them for a couple of years. Oh, see, that is a really good question, Dual Power.
Yes.
Can you answer that?
Yes. They will be made available as audiobooks. The plan is that they will be part of the package where the hard copy books is published. There will be a link in the purchase, which will direct you straight to the audiobooks as well, and you can download them there. That's the plan.
This was something we talked about last time.
Yeah, that's right.
because we wanted to be a special offer for you guys that buys the book early, that you will have not only the chance to learn this guy and come here and maybe even I don't know, get personal chit chat with him, ask how he got his idea, maybe even who these character is and stuff. Um, and I'm pretty sure that getting this into some audios could be quite amazing. But I'm not his publisher. I'm just a guy that stream, and I'm pretty sure that when he says they will come, you can count on it.
They definitely will. Earlier, there has been in the past, it has been quite expensive to have audiobooks produced and published. But these day and age, a lot of programs with small publishers as well as the major publishers it makes it much more easy to get an audiobook produced and put out on the market.
Wow, that's good to hear, man.
Yeah,
Because that was what we talked about. That will be expensive as.
yeah. It has up till recently been very expensive.
So now it's actually come in with some normal payment that is doable.
There is a certain trend now that it's getting cheaper. And I won't say it's getting cheaper by the day, but the trend is there. It's getting cheaper uh, over time now. So I think that over the next year or so, it'll be down in the level where everyone can say that okay, now we're talking.
Yeah, that will be really nice.
Yeah,
Um, and guys and girls, I can only say thank you for coming in and still supporting this guy. We will still be trying to check the videos, see how many comes in, and watch them on YouTube. So please don't forget that. You can check the first one, you can check the second one, and this one will be uploaded tonight, which means it will have access tomorrow morning. So you can
and
go in there listen.
and also, if you have any ideas of the topics which you'll be treating on in the net videos, you can leave a message with either me or with Stephen, the Solus, and so we will, the Solus and I, we will do our best to look into these suggestions and make it happen.
Again, guys, this is why it's amazing to have instant contact with us. And we can ask Robin, that has been here all the time. Robin, do you have any wishes for the next session?
More reading.
What books do you want to hear again?
The one he reads right now.
With
From
the
Mandigo.
Yeah,
so not the eyes anymore.
I love all of them, but this is actually interesting as well.
This is
I'll
really
preparing
good.
I'll be preparing a few more chapters from Mandigo next time for you, Robin.
Nice.
And guys, he has made more books than this. Can you please tell us a little bit about the books so people can come with some questions for them, or maybe even what they want to hear?
Sure. Um, One of the most important books I made beyond the two books I've already mentioned here was Rise of the Winged Lion. This is the first book in a science fiction trilogy that takes place around 5,000 years into the future, in which at which point human race has colonized much of the Milky Way galaxy, but also run into some trouble with an alien race called the Vork. Human civilization has been put under the boots of these Vorks, and most humans live as slaves in this society. But there is a rebellion in the works. There are some places in the galaxy where there are still some people, some humans living free, and on one of these worlds, there is also a ancient weapon buried, a weapon that actually destroyed a whole civilization several millennia before this story. and this weapon is waking up. All it needs is an avatar, because it has to bond with a living being in order to function properly. And the story focus on this weapon and its avatar. The avatar is a young hunter. His name is Tyrone Brand. He lives on a world with a lot of forests. One day, there's slavers coming to his world. They try to enslave his people. He fights back, and he's shot, left for dead. He falls into a river, and it is actually in this river this ancient weapon of mass destruction lives. And they bond. And this weapon introduces itself to the young man Tyrone as Nin Utaru Kashura. And if you think that sounds strange, it is strange, but it's actually also a couple of real words. It's old Akkadian from the Mesopotamian era, and it means the awesome one. And the awesome one, this being, this weapon of mass destruction, tells Tyrone that if he will allow himself to become the avatar of this weapon, it will help him get revenge for his people, and it will destroy the civilization of the Vork and give man another chance. And so that's when the story kicks off. But it's a science fiction story, a trilogy. Some of the books are no longer in print at present, but I plan to have them in print as soon as possible. They are some of them are still available at Saxo, and also as both as ebooks and as hard copy. Right now, I'm working on a new fantasy trilogy called Simon, Warrior of Worlds. Book 1 in the series, called In the Shadow of the Radiant, is being edited right now, going to the final stages of the editing process, after which there will follow some proofreading and stuff. And the finished manuscripts should be ready around New Year's time, and hopefully will get into print and be published during the first half of 2023.
All three
That's the
books?
plan anyway. No, that's book one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also want to know something that you jumped a little bit over. In the other books, The Winged Lion, isn't that right that not only slaves are we, but we also consider a lovely delicatesse?
Come again, please?
We also seemed like a really nice dinner for the Walks.
Oh, yes. That's right. Humans are considered food for the Walks. So they, especially people from working as slaves or low-end income, they are easily picked up by Vox all the time and eaten. So we become part of the Vox menu in that time.
That sounds delicious.
Some people, or some of the humans, have made a deal with the Vox in which they are allowed to live. They're allowed to go about their business and conduct trade and stuff like that. But they have to hand over much of their produce to the Vogue, and so they pay. They literally pay to be left alone and stay alive.
Yeah. So, do we have any guys on the thread that have any questions before we continue? Dum 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 dum. Uh-oh. I don't see any question yet. I hope they will be there. Also, what I hear is you definitely gotta come with more fantasy with next time. Do you have any others idea that you want to share next time?
Well, next time I'll talk about some of the stuff that goes into the whole process before I start writing fantasy books. Like it, fantasy and science fiction are two genres that lend itself admirably to what we call world building.
Yeah.
I've already talked a little about the map making, but world building is far more than just drawing a map.
Yeah.
It's about creating a world that feels as if it's real. That is, you like to make it feel so real that you can actually touch it or smell it, especially
Yeah.
smell it.
And feel like you
Um,
live there.
yeah, exactly. And I'll go into this in our next video because, especially for fantasy books, this is very important, but also a great joy, a great challenge, but also a great joy when you can carry it off. And I'll be talking a little about this, some of the elements that go into building a world like Mundu, which is the world on which Simon plays out.
Okay.
There's a lot of legend, a lot of history going to that.
Okay. So that will mean like today we got some mapping, and next time we're gonna get some more into how to build a fantasy.
That's right.
Okay. Do you have any books you want to take with us again? More eyes, more. Yeah.
Well, for those who are interested, I have one chapter from Mendigo I like to read before I close for tonight.
Ooh. Guys, shut up. Have fun. Let's hear it.
All right. This is chapter 29 of the Mendigo and the Hellhounds. Um, at this point, we are so roughly halfway into the story. Mendigo has been taken by a Black Knight to a castle called Bloodstone Castle. It turns out that the Black Knight is a sorcerer, and he wants to employ Mendigo as his apprentice and train him to become a sorcerer. It turns out also that Mendigo comes from a long line of sorcerers and wizards. It so happens that Mendigo has some qualms or doubts about his master. He thinks there's something odd going on Bloodstone Castle, um, and he allies himself with some other apprentices, and around his same age. A couple of them maybe 1 or 2 years older, and they want to break in to the crypt underneath the castle. They manage to do so, and when this chapter opens, they have just managed to break through the spells that protected the portal, um, and they're now standing in this deep, dark dungeon. The chamber concealed a handful of stone sarcophagi. The lid of one of them had been cast to the ground with tremendous force in a cloud of dust. At that time, an ice-cold puff of air came rushing out and blew Helena's, Casper's, and Jasper's torches. Only Mendigo's lantern remained lit, but both he and it still lay on the crypt's ground. "He's coming!" exulted the White Lady. "Finally, we can all be together." And with these words, she faded out like a moonlight absorbed by clouds in the night. A mournful moaning rolled heavily under the walls, and something moved in the chamber with the open sarcophagus. Helena bent down and began to shake Mendigo frantically. "Get on your feet, you idiot! You've got to do something." But Mendigo merely responded like a loose-jointed doll, seemingly lost to the outside world. Suddenly, Casper and Jasper screamed loudly when large numbers of ghostly figures without warning emerged from the walls and floors. One of them materialized under the hem of Jasper's frock and rolled up alongside his body. His face turned chalky white, and his eyes bulged out from their sockets. His hair stood out on all sides, and his mouth gaped widely. He let out a strange, whimpering sound that almost sounded like someone trying to whistle with a blade of grass between their lips, and then he stood in the middle of a wet, warm pool. In the meantime, Caspar had been surrounded by ghosts. He staggered here and there as he tried to protect himself with his magic, but stumbled in panic over the words of the protective spells. He swung his arms wildly, only to see them pass harmlessly through the bodiless creatures. Casper, watch out! Stay with us! Helena shouted, trying to warn him. At that very moment, however, the evil spirits caught hold of Casper and tossed him hard on the ground. Before anyone could do anything, something sunk its claws into his legs and started pulling him away from the others and in towards the shadows. He shouted a heart-rending shriek of agony and terror and ripped his nails on the floor tiles until they were bleeding in his desperate attempt not to get swallowed up completely by the hungry darkness. But it was too strong for him, and he was mercilessly dragged across the floor like a leopard's mangled prey. Helena reached for him only to be knocked down by another evil spirit. The blow hit her on the side of the head, making her golden hair stand like a cloud about her face. She groaned and rolled on the floor a few times, and then the spirits were on her like a pack of wild dogs smelling blood. The screams from Helena and Casper echoed in the crypt and made the dust on the coffin's lids fly. Casper's face was a small pale mask of despair and excruciating pain just before he got swallowed up by the darkness in a corner of the crypt. The last thing anyone saw of him were his hands that were, like useless chunks of meat, dragged across the tiles, leaving bloody streaked tracks behind them. Helena's left chin and cheek had been marred by the 3 deep and bloody gashes that looked as though they came from the claws of the wild animal, and her clothes had been torn to shreds by invisible hands. Some tremendous force or other grabbed hold of her hair and pulled her head back, while other ghost hands grabbed the collar of not only her frock, but also the tunic she wore underneath and tore the fronts off from neck down. Mendigo, still partially in shock, blinked drunkenly when he saw his sister's naked body exposed before him in such a crude fashion. The terrified expression she had on her face would be engraved on his memory forever after. Flee! Flee! You must flee! Someone said behind Mendigo, and the white lady, who had identified herself as being his mother's ghost, moved once more into his field of vision. There is too much aggression and agony among the spirits you released, she said. I can't control them, and maybe he can't either. He? Mendigo now heard the sound of armor-plated feet dragging themselves heavily across the floor tiles, and he felt a cold wave hit him and almost push him up against the wall. He fumbled around with his lantern, and then he caught sight of an awesome figure in the dying glow of the lantern's light. A nearly 2-meter-tall knight wearing chain mail, leg armor, a helmet, and a tabard. But the knight was somehow unreal. He moved stiffly and slowly, and his armor was both dusty and covered with spots of rust. The tabard was tattered and faded by age, and his helmet tusk had rotten away a long time ago. But not the sword. He was still holding it in his hand, where it shone with silvery clarity. It was this knight who had risen from the sarcophagus a little while earlier to fight once more. Help them, love. Our children need you, the white lady implored the knight, who in response lifted his sword high up above his head and roared a hoarse challenge from inside his helmet towards the restless, bloodthirsty spirits surrounding him. And the spirits drew back, like bats fleeing the daylight and hurrying home to their caves. They spread out towards the corners of the crypt and hid as they howled and shrieked defiantly and promised revenge. But they cleared away. Whatever the knight's power consisted of, it was too strong for them, at least for the time being. They'll soon return, the white lady warned Mendigo. You must leave now and never come back. We won't be able to help you again another time. Mendigo stared at the knight and his mother's ghost. A delicate ghost hand slid into the knight's gloved left hand that slowly closed around it. Mendigo understood and felt a stab in his heart. He had now met both his parents. Hurry, his mother's spirit urged him. Hurry and help your friends out of here. Mendigo swallowed hard and, trembling, came to his feet. First he ran to Jasper, still stood stiff as a poker, alongside the wall. Mendigo shouted his name, but had to push him hard in order to get him out of his state of shock. Jasper, wake up! You have to help me. We have to get the others out of here. Come on, you slowpoke. You help Helena and I'll get Casper. The lantern! Jasper mumbled and reached out for Mandigo's lantern with trembling hands that couldn't manage to hold on to anything. Mandigo saw that Jasper's frayed nerves needed the light in order to not to shrivel up entirely. Unfortunately, the lantern was running out of oil. Mandigo cursed. Jasper needed a lantern in order to maintain courage, and he needed a light in order to find Casper. He looked around. The torches the others had been carrying had to be lying around somewhere. He dragged Jasper around with him for a bit as he searched. Then he found one. He picked it up and focused on it with his gift. It lit, and he gave it to Jasper. Now go and help Helena, he said. Jasper nodded stupidly and tottered over to Helena on stiff legs. She lay curled up on the floor and was softly crying with her hands covering her face. Mandigo cursed again and disappeared down the corridor where he had last seen Casper. He continued down the corridor for its entire length as he followed the tracks of Casper's bloody fingers. But the tracks stopped abruptly at the foot of the wall at the end of the corridor, without any trace of Casper himself. Frustrated and confused, Mandigo walked in a circle around himself, sweeping back and forth with a torch in order to shed light on all the dark corners in the corridor. But the only thing his eyes were able to catch sight of was dust, stones, and cobwebs. Casper was and remained gone. Casper, he called out loudly in the darkness. There was a faint moaning coming from somewhere above where Mandigo stood. He lifted the torch and looked up. Casper was hanging from an old torch holder or bracket on the wall. The seam on his frock had been torn and blood was dripping from both his hands and feet. For a moment, Mandigo's brain stopped working. Then he felt a cool breeze on his neck and knew that time was running out. Jasper, he called with all his might. Yeah. You gotta come here right now. You gotta help me with the Casper. Yeah, but Helena. Leave the lantern next to her and take my torch. My mom and dad, the knight and the white lady, will look after her while you help me. Just come on. We can't leave Casper here. Still somewhat hesitant, Jasper ventured forth towards the Mandigo, who at this point was fretting with impatience. Here, stand directly below him and get ready to catch him, Mandigo said when Jasper finally reached him. When Jasper saw what had happened to Casper, he gave a terrified gasp. Yes, it's terrible, Mandigo grunted as he pushed Jasper into the right position. Here, yes, get a hold of his legs. That's it. Oh, God, he's bleeding. Yes, but you've got to pull yourself together for his sake. You're his best friend, right? Jasper nodded speechlessly. Tears trickled down his round cheeks. Mandigo sighed and focused his attention on the torch holder. He didn't have much energy left, but he knew he couldn't afford to make a mistake. His vision and his entire soul zoomed in on an unstable spot on the torch holder, and with a soundless snarl he lashed out with his gift. The air quivered for a moment with energy, and the torch holder began to bend on the spot where it was unstable, so that the tip slipped out of Casper's frog's collar, and he landed in Jasper's and Mandigo's arms. Between them, Mandigo and Jasper managed to tug Casper back to Helena, who still lay on the floor crying. On seeing his battered sister, Mandigo once again had to swallow the lump he had in his throat in order to fight back his own tears. Hurry, Mandigo's mother's spirits repeated. She was still floating next to the old knight. While Jasper supported Casper, Mandigo kneeled down beside Helena to help her get back on her feet. At first she didn't want to acknowledge him, but with a little patience and soothing words he finally got her to stand up. It wasn't a moment too soon. The air in the crypt began to flicker with shadows on the hunt and hungry ghosts. Let's get out of here, Mandigo mumbled as he put his arms protectively around Helena, who clung to him. Wait, the knight cried with his bone-dry, coarse voice as he held his big sword forward towards Mandigo. Take this, Steelshine. It is the Northern family sword. It has been used to fight evil for 6 generations. Take it and keep it for the day when you yourself must protect the light. Mandigo reached towards the sword with reverence. He had expected it to be very heavy, but it wasn't, and it was nicely balanced and felt good in his hand. He looked up at his father's corpse and his mother's ghost. There were so many things he wanted to ask them about, but there was no more time. Hurry up, son, go, save your friends, his mother's ghost said. She was already starting to fade away, and the night was beginning to look weak. Mendigo felt his throat constricting. He let Jasper walk ahead of them, together with Caspar. Just before he and Helena left the crypt, he stopped and looked back one last time at his parents. He just managed to catch a last vague glimpse of his mother's ghost before it vanished into the nothingness, whereupon his father's corpse crumbled into a ball of dust. They were gone. End of chapter.
There you go, guys. Another full chapter for all of you. Damn. Robin, are you happy today?
Yes.
Wow.
Actually,
Again, Last Ender, you surprise us with a whole hour of your time.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I can say for myself, and probably for Robin too, that we really enjoy when you come here, and I'm pretty sure that when people start listening to what we've done today, they will also like it. Do you have more to share today? Something you want to tell to the people watching, or the people to come into YouTube?
Not really, just saying that I'm working hard to finish the Simeon book, and I'll hope to see or hear from you next time.
And that date, let's go in and check. It says here 26 in this month at 7 o'clock.
That's right.
Don't forget, guys, put it in your phones. Make your phone ring so you don't forget the time. Put your time to ring like half an hour before. Do it like me here. Let's put it in the calendar. Go for the 26th, which is a Monday. Let's add it. Title, author. And then we set it for start on, let's see here, 18, there we go, 1815, there we go, save it. So now you go, guys. I put mine in. I hope you did too. Take your phone up, put it in your calendar, and the calendar will remind you next time he be here. I can only say for myself, thank you again and again. You're amazing, Lars.
Thank you, and thank you for your invitation.
You're always welcome, my friend. I think we will stop the recording here. So for all of you, don't forget to go back to the first and the second video so you can follow up on what we're gonna read and what stories to come. It will always be a surprise for all of us, at least to come and have some specific wishes. Then it will be up to Last Ender what he wants to share with us. And don't forget, having him personally reading up for the books also give the different kind of people the real personality that we want, which makes this so much better.